What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be looking at Tesla today, a quick breakdown, go over some technicals and some indicators. So we've been writing up this upward sloping trend line, and we have this downward sloping trend line that we've got to retest off of. Looks like Tesla's been holding up pretty well with all the negativity. Thought this would have already fallen through, but it's holding up pretty good. We'll see what ends up happening because we could continue to move up. Maybe get a little chop before we make our way up. Second scenario that I see playing out is if this week turns out bad with the report that comes out Thursday, the CPI and the PPI on Friday, maybe we get a close underneath here, retest, and now we're underneath this downward sloping trend line, and we're compressing between this horizontal level of support and resistance and this trend line. And then maybe we see something like this until we finally get our next breakout to the upside, or we chop until we get our break to the downside. Those are the two scenarios within that secondary scenario. So if that scenario happens, we're probably going to chop, break out, or chop, break down. If we hold here, we could potentially chop upward, eventually break down, and so on. So we're either going to compress in this zone here or down in this zone. So hopefully it's compressing up here to break out, because if we were to break out of this zone, it's a clean move to the left, so we can really rally up pretty quickly. When you look to the left, there's not much traffic. Your next level would probably be around 355 to 360 if you broke this level. And to the downside, once you break 213, you can easily see 183. And after 183, you'd probably see around 166 to about 160. On the SMAs, we've fallen underneath all three. We got our retest off the 20 moving average and push price down further into that downward sloping trend line. And we did fall underneath the 200 week, which is a very strong level. We definitely want to reclaim that so we can get bullish momentum to the upside, because when you fall underneath the 200 and whenever you break above the 200, they're usually strong moves. So when we broke underneath this 200 here, it was a 35% drop. And then when we broke above it, you can see what happens. When you broke above it here, you can see what happens. When we broke underneath it here, it was a 37% drop. When we broke underneath it here, well, this was it broke and it closed back above. But when we actually had to close underneath it, it ended up being a 36% drop. So I mean, it looks like every single one. This is 37, this is 36, this one's 37. So when we break and close underneath here, a 37% drop would take us all the way down to about 150. Hopefully we don't see that. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just showing you what has happened when we did break underneath the 200 week. But normally when we break above the 200 week, we get strong moves to the upside. As you can see, 100, that's a massive gain, and 100 just on the smaller scales. On the larger scale, this is 1500, 2000. So we'll see how it plays out. On the daily and Bollinger Bands, we're stuck in between. We did get our bounce off of the green band and off the blue band. So let's see if we make our way back to the blue. We do have confluence underneath price with the Bollinger Bands, along with these these trend lines holding up price. But we do have resistance above our head because of the trend lines on top of our head. The moving averages. And we have more confluence underneath price, the green band on the weekly. So let's see if we get a bounce off of that and a push to the blue band. The RSI on the daily is trying to make a comeback. It was creating higher highs and higher lows. We had a nice little trend going on, as you can see here. And then we broke underneath it, and we broke underneath this moving average, the yellow line. And we're making our way back to the moving average. So let's see if we break above this moving average and make our way back to this trend line, and then make a decision whether we break above it or we get a retest and push down lower. On the weekly, it's extremely bearish. We tried making a move up, and it was a dead cat bounce, pushing down lower. We are almost at oversold territory. We're almost at 30. Last time we were in this region, We did find some support around here. You can see it bounces around this region, not exactly every time, but it's very close to this region before we get those moves up. So could be looking at a potential reversal relatively soon. And when I say soon, this is on a weekly scale, so you're talking in a 2-month time frame. So maybe 4 to 5, maybe even 8 weeks. It could even happen tomorrow. Who knows? Nobody knows. When we take a look at the Fibonacci retracement, we are underneath the golden zone, pushing off of it. It's a strong level of continuation. This is a bullish pull, so we want to bounce on top of this to allow price to move up higher. And when we pull it to a larger scale, all the way to the bottom here, we're still inside the golden zone for a larger move up. So this is on a large scale, this is still very bullish, and this is just a minor pullback. When you're in doubt, you just zoom out and you can get a better picture of what's going on. But this is still within the golden zone. Let's see if we can get a close above the 0.5 to allow price to push up higher. That's all I have for you guys here on Tesla. I'll see you in the next one.